Hello and welcome back to this week's analysis. Last week on gold, my target was 2,431.375. Let's check out the moment when I said that in last week's video. Our next target is going to be this highest point here, which is 2431. Welcome back, guys. You can see price went into that point and gave us a solid rejection to the downside. So I gave a plan B if price continues lower, and my plan B was to sell below this trend line and below this 2,374.700 area, break below it, go back for a retest, then before shooting down into this exact target. If you doubt me, here's the video. So my bearish scenario will be for price to take out all these zones and let's say break below this 2374.700 area, break below it, come back for a retest, then we'll trade into this low here, which is 2339.056. That will be a bearish scenario. Welcome back, guys. You can see on the 1 hour time frame, if I zoom in properly, price did break below that zone, went back for a retest and pushed lower until we came into this point. So guys, you see, trading could be hard, but you can actually make it easy if you actually know exactly what you are looking for in the market and act accordingly. So now that we are here, first of all, I'd like to go to the weekly time frame to be able to project what we should be expecting next week. Now, for the past couple of weeks, you can notice that price is stalling around here. We are beginning to see presence of sellers in the market. Don't forget the fact that we are in a bullish trend. So what is happening right now is just maybe price trying to go for a pullback on a higher time frame before we continue the bullish trend. As you can see, we had this solid weekly bearish engulfing candle here because this is the weekly time frame. So yeah, we should be looking at a little bit of bearish side of things going into next week. Now I can say that price is actually targeting these areas here. Let me even put a line there for easy identification. I'll just put it here. So I can say that price is pointing towards 2,291.805. All right, I can say that is where price is headed, but let's go to a much lower time frame to actually put this into perspective. Now on the 4 hour time frame, I will be expecting one of two things because I am more bearish minded going into next week. So going into next week, I'd like to sell below here. That means price has to break below 2,325.959 area. Price has to break below it, go back for a retest. Then when it's going back for this retest on this 4 hour time frame, you want to go to a much lower time frame like the 15 minutes time frame to catch an early entry, stop loss above, and take profit around here. Let me even move this here. Take profit around 2,282.880. All right, that's scenario one. Then another scenario could be for price to go for a buy to this point, which is 2,374.700 area. So go for a buy to sell scenario. So that is what I'm going to be expecting going into next week. These are the two areas. If I was trading gold, I'll be looking to sell from, if that makes sense. I mean, we've seen a change of character because between this point to this point, price was creating new higher highs and higher lows. Now we've created a new lower low, which is obviously lower than this previous low. So price may be going for a lower high to this point before we come back here to create a new lower low. All right, so that is possible. So to sell, these are the two areas I'll be looking for: a break below here, a retest before we sell down, or price rallies up to this place before we sell down. All right, so that is that on gold going into next week. The next on my list is US30. So many people have been asking me to analyze US30. So US30, I would like to start from the weekly time frame. So on the weekly time frame, you can see this solid bearish engulfing candle with which we closed for last week. All right, the previous time that happened around here, you can see how price pushed lower before continuing higher, and now again we have closed with a bearish engulfing candlestick. So I'm not saying we are going to sell off completely, definitely not. This is obviously an uptrending in this, so if you are holding long term, you should of course be buying. All right, but if you're a day trader, you want to go in and out of the market, that is why we do this from time to time. All right, so going into next week, I'll still be expecting some kind of bearish push before we continue bullish. Now on the daily time frame, I have this trend line. pointing upward, 0.1, 0.2, then I am anticipating a 0.3 touch, all right, before we either push higher or break below it, all right, before we either push higher or break below it. Now, if we actually break below this zone, which is around 38,286.06. So if we can break below that zone, then go back to that area for a retest, then we can sell to this target here, which is 36,673.15. But this is on the daily time frame, right? We don't place trades on the daily time frame except if you want to swing a trade. So let's go to a much lower time frame. Let's go to a 4-hour time frame so that we can get a clearer picture of this. On the daily time frame, we already know where this trend line is coming from. If you missed that, just rewind a bit to revisit where the trend line is coming from. All right, we've already established where it's coming from. So guys, scenario one is, since this is an absolutely bullish trending market, I am actually expecting price to bounce off within these zones, these two zones of 38,543.67 and 38,305.25. So I'm expecting price to come into that zone, tap into this trend line, and if we see a confirmation, win or lose, if I'm trading this, I'm going to execute if my entry strategy is being met within that zone. All right, but what if price let's say my entry strategy gets met and I jump into the trade and price continues lower and I lose the trade? You should accept losses. I always say this from time to time. Don't be scared to lose. In trading, we usually have a mixture of winners and losers. You have to live with it. There's nothing you can do about it because you want to buy, the other bigger players wants to sell, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. All right, but how do you realign yourself if that is the case, if that happens? So what I'm going to be doing is, if price eventually now breaks below this 38,305.25 region, right, then I'm going to go to a much lower time frame, like the 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 1 hour time frame, wait for a pullback, look for my entry criteria to be met, then I will sell. Now, if we sell, I will be expecting price to continue. My goodness, where's my target? Let me go to the daily time frame and make this visible. I want to see you on the hourly. So let's go back. So yeah, my next target will be around here, which is 36,673.15. That is if price continues bearish. But since we are in a bullish trend, I'll actually like to see price bounce off from within these zones here. But you already know how I do it. I like to go for up. I like to have plan B in place so that if I lose the first trade, I can always recoup and make a profit. All right, so that is that on US30. But you may be wondering, I didn't talk about targets, right? If price taps into here and continues bullish, my target will be the previous high that that price has obviously created for us, which is 40,006.20. So that will be my bullish target, while my bearish target is 36,673.15. All right, so let's go to DXY. Now on DXY, so last week I said our strategy at letstrade10x.com allows us place trades within the zone, which we did and made 4% profit last week. But if you're a swing trader looking to get into a trade and hold for a significant amount of move, I advise that you wait for price to actually break above this zone, come back for a retest before we trade to these obvious highs here. All right, because price could easily tap into this zone, because if you look at this, price is creating lows, lower highs, lower lows, so it can easily come here and give a rejection like we see happening right now. And for all I care, price may continue lower, probably before we see the bullish move we're expecting or whatever. All right, so basically my analysis still remains the same as last week, so I'm not going to be spending much time on DXY. All right, so for you to be bullish, if you're swing trading, then you need to wait for price to at least take out this 105.094 area on DXY, close above that zone with a daily candle. Then the next day you want to go to a much lower time frame, wait for any pullback or your entry criteria to play out and continue trading to the upside. All right, so what if price continues lower? Like I said last week, price was trading around here, that I'm going to like to see price take out this trend line and this price region here, which is 103.987. Take it out so that we can continue trading into these lows here. So my bearish target on DXY is around here. So the details of this analysis, I did that last week and last 2 weeks, so you can go revisit that video so that you can see my bullish targets and my bearish targets. As a matter of fact, was it last week or last 2 weeks, price was trading somewhere around here, and I predicted that price is going to come into this trend line and give us a rejection. As a matter of fact, also last week on the weekly time frame, I called our attention to the fact that price is still in a bullish trend until we break below this trend line, right? Because price is obviously creating a high, a higher low, a higher high. So I'm expecting a higher lows and then a new higher high. If you doubt me, let's revisit last week's video. On this weekly time frame on dollar index, between this point to this point, I want you to observe something. Price is creating a high, a higher low. We created a higher high here. This is a higher low. For now, I am expecting price to still come into this high here. So welcome back, guys. So no wonder you can see that even though last 2 weeks we closed with a solid bearish engulfing candle, we saw a bullish, more of a bullish price action last week. All right, so I'm going to continue bullish next week. I already told you how to take advantage of that if that happens. All right, and I also showed you how to take advantage of the bearish side of things if price breaks below this trend line. I mean, you see that trend line clearly if we go back to the 4-hour time frame. So this is that trend line on the weekly time frame. So we like to see price take it out. Now also take out this 103.987 before we continue trading all the way down to 101.657. All right, so that is that on the DXY. I've given you a buy and sell scenario. At least now you know where you should be buying and where you should be selling. All right, on EURUSD last week, my analysis remains pretty much the same as last week. However, due to the fact that our strategy once again at letstrade10x.com allows us trade within a range, we're able to place 2 good trades last week. All right, one around here. If we go to the 15 minutes time frame, so one around here and the other around here. All right, so this gave us 2% profit. This also gave us 2% profits because we're risking 1% per trade. So, but then remember last week I gave you 2 buying scenarios. Number 1 was for price to price was trading around here, if I remember vividly. So number 1 was for price to create a new higher high here, come back for a retest, whereby we now go to a much lower time frame to look for entries, and then we trade to this area here, which is around 1.09907. Now that bias still remains should we continue trading higher next week. All right, then the second scenario was for price to pull back into this area and we could just continue higher. All right, so if you didn't get any trading opportunity last week based on my analysis on euro dollar, that's if you only trade euro dollar also, you would have caught a trade around here because this was my second buying scenario, if you remember vividly. Well, let's revisit last week's video to see when I actually mentioned this. Or price may come into this region before we go bullish. Welcome back, guys. So you can see price tapped into that zone and then we pushed higher with such an impulsive move. I mean, this is the 4-hour time frame. If you go to a much lower time frame, you're going to see that impulsive move properly. So now going into next week, like I said, my analysis remains the same as last week. I'd like to see price break above this trend line and above this zone. All right, something like this. So break above the trend line and create a new higher high, come back for a retest where that is when we go to a much lower time frame and catch a trade into these obvious highs here. And for me to go bearish, guys, if you are actually swing trading, because like I said, our strategy allows us trade within this zone, it doesn't really matter, you know, and we can't tell until our rules are met in real time. So if not, I probably would have been telling you this is what I'll do once the market open and all. So it has to play out before we can know when it's time to actually take a trade. All right, but with what I can see right now, right, if you are looking for a clear path to trade, then wait for price to either go with this buying option, or for a bearish scenario, I'd like to see price take out 1.07964. All right, break below it, go back for a retest, we switch to a much lower time frame, catch a sell from there, stop loss above, then take profits below around here, which is 1.07280. All right, so that is my bias on euro dollar. Then the last on my list for this week is GBP USD. GBP USD last week played out perfectly also. Last week on GBP USD, I gave a buying and selling scenario as usual. Now, the buying scenario was for price to actually break above this region here. I think price was trading around here. Yeah, I remember. So break above this region, come back for a retest and push to this target here. Remember, when price is pulling back for that retest, you are going to the a much lower time frame so that you can get a decent move to the upside. I actually predicted a 98 pip move to the upside, which price came halfway or more than halfway before we pulled back again. All right, we pulled back and price still eventually broke above that zone, and we are still pointing upwards on GBP USD. So my analysis for the bullish side of things remains the same. Then for the bearish side of things, last week I actually talked about price. I always tell you about how to wait for confirmation. So if you were selling above here following my instruction, then you were doing it wrong, because my analysis last week was to go bearish, price has to break below this point, which price never did. So you shouldn't even be looking for sells, except if your strategy supports that, like mine, because yes, last week I was more bullish on Euro USD. However, I was still catching trade. Both trades I took last week were sells, so you can imagine. So it still depends on your execution strategy. But if you're sticking just based on my analysis, then you shouldn't have even been selling in the first place, right? So now price went with the buying option, and price is still trading in that direction. So once again, if price continues higher, my target remains 1.28045. All right. But for us to go bearish, let's say next week kicks in and price continues bearish, what do we do? All right, let's go to the 1 hour time frame and see what we can do. On the 1 hour time frame, I can see an area where I can plot a trend line around here. So I'll just plot this trend line, and then I will create a new zone. I will leave this zone as is. All right, I'm not going to delete that zone, but I'm going to create a new zone around here. All right, I'll create a new zone around here. So this zone is between 1.26865 and 1.26761. All right, so that is the zone. So I'd like to see price, for me to go bearish, I'd like to see price continue lower, break below 1.26761. So that way we've created a new lower low, which will obviously be lower than this low here. Then when we're coming back for a pullback, we want to go to a much lower time frame to catch an entry and anticipate that price is going to continue pushing into this next target here, which is, let me put a line there for easy identification, which is 1.25904. All right, so that is my bullish and bearish scenario on GBP USD. Well, if you are not already in this buy already and you want to take advantage of these buys, I'm beginning to have too many lines on my chart, but I just hope you're following what I'm saying here. So if you are not already in this buy, what I'll do if I was trading GBP USD is I'm going to put a zone around here and be patient enough for price. That's if you're not already in the trade, right? Because I already called this bullish move last week with targets and all. But if you are not in this trade already and you still want to join this buy, you don't know how to, then if price continues higher, except if we come for a pullback. So if we come for a pullback, of course, we can buy anywhere around these areas, which is 1.27074. That's if your rules are met, depending on your rules of engagement. All right. But if price continues higher, then I'd wait for price to break above this area, which is around 1.27571. So I'll wait for price to retest it. Since this is a 15 minutes time frame, wait for your confirmation and trade into these areas here, which is around 1.28014. So guys, you may be wondering, why am I moving so fast? So maybe you are still probably confused about how I am spotting these zones and all of that. These levels If I want to go into every little details, this video will be way too long. And remember, we consider time management when we are doing these YouTube videos, because not many people would watch a 30 minutes video, 40 minutes weekly videos. All right. So that's why we go faster. So if you want to actually learn how I see the market, and most importantly, how I execute in the market, you already know what to do. I say this in all of my videos, but the choice is yours. The choice is yours to enroll in our mentorship programs, and you can also choose not to, which is perfectly fine by me. All right. I know the value in our program. So do yourself a favor and grab any of our mentorship programs and take your trading to the next level. And like I said, if you are not interested, that's super cool. So just make sure you keep watching our videos, liking our videos, sharing these videos, and also leave a comment about what you're looking at going into next week. With that, I wish you a successful trading week, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.